So hello, welcome back to a new video. Today we are going to talk again a little bit about the a7r3 and the a7r3 weather sealing. Yeah, please like this video if you like this description. I think more people should like my videos in some way. It never happens, so please do. So one thing I try to do on my channel is I don't really review equipment that I don't own or don't want to own. I'm a user of the equipment, not a reviewer. So that's why we are visiting some topics multiple times. So in this case, somebody asked me quite a simple question. He saw some of the weather protection I was doing before, and he was actually just asking a simple question. What did you do at the bottom of your camera? What kind of tape are you using? And I actually replied to him saying, well, maybe I know an even better way which fits with what I know now. And I will make a new video, and I fiddled a little bit around this afternoon, and I want to show you what I've done to the camera, both in the naked form, and what I mean with naked is that there's no grip on it and with a grip attached. So I took some pictures just to explain the situation again and what kind of materials I used and where I think the problem is and how I resolved it, but now sort of in a two-step approach. The first one I will get back to because it depends on an L bracket, but I also think that this solution works quite well if you are just using it bare as it is now on the table. So let's first look at the problem. The weakest point of the a7 III and the a7R3 and maybe also the a9 is actually the bottom side. We will get back to it a little bit more later on. But first I want to show you this picture. So let me explain what you are seeing. Let me zoom in a tiny bit, if I can. Yeah, here we go. So what you see here is basically the battery door inside an L bracket. And what you also already should notice, I was keeping it against the light, and you can see the sunlight, and you can see that there's quite clearly there are different holes that you can see inside the door. Now normally, of course, it would not be able for you to see the door. So I've put it in an L bracket, in this case one from Really Right Stuff. But you can clearly see this is not a mistake of the Really Right Stuff solution. Although the little hole at the bottom that you see behind the second screw is actually in the rubber of that product. But the top ones, you see quite a few sort of places where water can get in because of something that Sony put in his door, which is a cable feeder. So this is one of the problems. So one of the easy fixes, which we already showed back then, is that if you put a piece of tape on the outside, on the inside of this battery door, then basically you're closing up 90% of the hole. But based on the only tests we have seen, because even now 1.5 years later, the only test we have seen of weather testing is basically, I wouldn't say a stupid, but a somewhat elaborate hosing down of two cameras, and most likely water got into the battery department, which we will talk about, and then went up the battery and somehow created something that actually recovered itself, but that was part of the problem. And also a teardown from lens rentals, which I did a video about before, which took the whole camera apart and pointed out some weak points, and again they were hinting to the bottom side of the camera. So when I added the L bracket, or when I was helping on the design of different L brackets for small rig, we actually decided not to move the door, but to keep the door in the place and basically add about 2 centimeters so that water at least will be further away from your device. But that's not what I want to talk to you about, at least in the beginning part of this video, but I want to show you what I actually now did to the bottom of my camera and why. So before what I was just doing, and let me show you the pictures what we are talking about. So hopefully I'm going in the correct direction. I'll jump to some pictures. So this is actually the bottom of the camera, right? And what you see is the weak point. I took the door out, and what you see is basically in a teardown it was sort of revealed that there are 2 weak points. First the door, which I kind of already showed you, and also kind of a hint of how to fix it. But the second part that was remarked is that these 8 screws that you see on the bottom, or 9, sorry, that you see at the bottom, and the plate that is behind is actually the only protection. Once water get in there, it can get into the camera. We have not seen this happen, at least I don't see any, after about 1.5 years, any more proof than some of the other brands that the Sony ones are worse or better than in their, let's say, in their returns to the camera shops, is that they always break because of the weather problems. We have not actually seen that, but even then I think it's a good idea to follow the teardown and see if we can resolve at least the problems with the holes that we see at the bottom, and also maybe this what you're seeing here. So first what I would normally do is just tape it up. But then I've been very into a certain grip material, which if you've been following my channel you know about. It's called GT5000. You can buy it on Amazon for a few dollars. I think it's about $7 for 6 strips or something. And it was actually made for gun grips. But you can see you can also use it in different products. And actually I use it a lot in my grip, which I'll show in the end of the video. But I also, when the person asked me this question this morning, decided to try something else. Because first I was just using normal electronics, but electro tape, so normal gaffer-like tape at the bottom of the camera, which looks a little bit ugly. So I can imagine that you don't want to, and it was also still quite slippery. So I decided to see what would happen if I would use 2 of these strips and sort of put them together and put some pressure on it. Now you already noticed that this becomes very sort of, yeah, it doesn't really want to move anymore because you have this rubber material going over this rubber material. So I decided to replace the bottom of my camera with this material. So as you can see, on the bottom of my camera I basically added this material. So I can show you a little bit the steps that I took. But now it's sort of, you can still remove it, it's quite removable. I did a separate part for the door. But now the good thing is that it feels actually better because you have this same sort of grip material at the bottom that you have on the front of your camera. So basically this part. So it's actually quite nice. And it's also filling up all these holes that we were talking about. And I will show you also that how I protected the inside of the door. So basically going back to the pictures, you can see that these are the weak points. It's not like it's a good looking camera from the bottom anyway, so I actually think that the end result does not really look that much worse. So first the door. Basically you can see here the problem I was talking about. You see this little sort of flap that you can open up, and that actually is where the point is where most of the water can get in, to be frank about it. So you can also just tape it up with some regular tape. But I decided to basically, both on this side and on the other side, so I now opened up the door so that you can see it, basically where the weak points are. And then I sort of made a drawing of it, cut it out, and sort of taped that part on the door, right? Because you can remove the door, so you can see kind of how that evolved. Then I did the same with the body and put it on there, as you can see. And this is sort of the end result, which I also saw. Don't forget to make the hole. Now, if you're, I don't plan to use it this way anyway. I will put it back into the L bracket, which is, I will show you why I think the test I just showed you with the sliding together of the 2 parts is so important because of the friction, because it has a bonus sort of result. But you can see that even if you would use the camera now like this, it actually already feels nicer because of basically the bottom part is the same rubbery stuff that now also is the same as your grip, sort of. It's very close. So I still don't like how the camera feels like this. That's why I started with the pinky grip, right? I mean, clearly that was my point. But you already notice if you put the camera down that it's really much more, it doesn't want to move anymore. So I can already see some advantages, of course. It's protected, so if it hits something, it's more protected. It doesn't want to slip away anymore. It's quite sort of anti-slip sort of thingy. And all these screws are now sort of protected the way that we talked about. You also see that if I open up the battery door, you can see that I also put, let me try to put the top camera here. You can see that I've put a little bit of the same material also here at the inside of the door part that we talked about. So both on the inside and the outside, the cable feeder is not working anymore. So the downside, on this camera, I can't use the cable feeder anymore. But if I want to use that, I will take out the battery door all by itself, and then I'm also done. I really hope Sony or somebody else at some point starts selling these little doors without basically the cable feeder part, and maybe even a better rubber sort of gasket over there. But until this is there, we can't do that. But you can see that this is actually kind of a nice looking result now, and it's very anti-slippy in a way. So I think for everybody who doesn't use an L bracket, this is actually quite a good solution. Because I don't see that there are any downsides. I don't think it became any uglier. It actually protects your camera. If I would use this way, I might even put it a little bit further, because I'm using L bracket that was not needed, so that it might protect a little bit against damage of your camera. Now I must say, looking at my own camera, I got this when the a7r III came out, and I don't really understand how so many people create so many let's say scuffs and things on their cameras. For me, it still looks quite okay in my opinion. But as you can see from the side, that I actually think, and this is not even the biggest lens, this is a 16 to 35 GM lens. I really don't like the size of the camera like this. But anyway, yeah, that might be a good solution if you just want to protect your camera from the bottom, and I think this already solves, I would argue, about 90% of all the problems that we are seeing with at least what we know of the weak points of the camera. Now, for the people who use L brackets, I also wanted to show the second nice thing about this solution. And again, I'm using the small rig L brackets, and I think I probably have made a picture of this L bracket somewhere over here. So you see that, and you can also see, because I'm always fiddling with another part, but it's totally unrelated part, that I made a gasket of rubber into the grip part. I'm not going to explain it, but you see also that there are already 3 little rubbers there for anti-slip. So basically that the camera can't move on the L bracket. And although it's a lot better, there are still people who feel that there can be some movement. And personally, I found that to be true on the really Right Stuff one and also on the small rig ones. So I decided, and you see that there's still quite a big sort of hole there, and so water can still come in. So the good news is the water is already 2 centimeters higher compared to normally, because if you look at this L bracket, you can see this is quite high. So the water, if you put it in a pool of water, then before it even reaches your camera, it's already quite protected. But you can also see from the top view that actually what I decided to do compared to the way that I got it is, because I have this material anyway, to also put some of this anti-slip material. Let me zoom in. On top of the camera, of the L bracket. You can see that all the parts, including the whole part, which I didn't like, I added more of this material. I didn't put it over the rubbers, which are over here, and there's one over here, but there's still a few areas where I think it could help. Why? Because the moment that you sort of put the other part on there, it becomes very sort of anti. So you can already see it's difficult to move then. So that's basically what I ended up doing, as sort of an improvement on the improvement on the improvement. So now if I put in this L bracket, let me put it in, get the tool out. Let me zoom out a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. So normally, I wouldn't say one of the complaints, but people say that you have to put this on quite tough, right? You have to really, screw it down quite hard. I always want to line it up correctly. So let me put it down a bit to make sure, because I don't want to take it out. But on purpose, what I'm going to do is really not do it too tight. So much looser than I would normally do. And I already feel that it's now much more stable, even if I don't totally lock it down, if that makes sense. There's less movement like this, because all this gripping material is basically now sort of gripping each other. So let me see if it's, from the top camera, show you if it's nicely aligned. That's what I normally do. So make sure that it's sort of in the correct position, and then lock it down. And even I myself, normally I would tighten it down quite far. I now decided to do it less. So still a bit, but not really massively. And see if that over the next 2 weeks actually helps more into this, keeping this whole thing tight. Now, of course, the whole idea, but then we get back to the L bracket again, is that we can open it up, still like this, right? You can now see why I made this rubber over here, because that creates a second sort of layer of water protection. So if I close this up, then first the water has to reach it. You can see that this is basically now a rubber seal, which is in there. So, but like I said, I'm doing it a little bit more extreme. And for me, it was always a discussion of if it doesn't hurt, why wouldn't I do it, sort of way. So the grip is all for me just because I think it now feels much nicer in the hand. But the added advantages of putting the grip material in there is that it feels better. So you can also see, of course, let me put it in this view, that on this grip I've put it over here. That's why I bought it. But since it's such a sort of anti-slip sort of material, especially if you do it against each other, right? So if you try to rub it out, it's rubber on the rubber, which is quite sort of textured feel to it, that it actually is very difficult to move once it's sort of locked into each other. So yeah, that's sort of what I want to show you, and I think it's again a little bit of an improvement. If people have been following my video, they know that before. So let me open it up again. So this weird looking thing was first on this part, so over here on the door, and it would actually lock into there. So I took it off and I'll put it in here because I had to do something with it. It doesn't do anything anymore, so it's not needed. But I figured, let's see what happens if I don't make this interlocking system and if this just works like this now. So I'm kind of trying to simplify the solution. So yeah, weather sealing on the a7 III and the a7R III with and without the L bracket, because I think even if you don't have the L bracket, the way that I showed you with this material is already a good sort of step forward, because it basically makes your camera much less slippery. It seals up the bottom side that I showed you before. I'm pretty sure it helps quite a lot in the weather sealing. And it protects the bottom sides from scratches and all kinds of other things that you might have. Very happy with this stuff. It's not that expensive. I think because by mistake I ordered 12 and it was 12 for $25. So it's you can see there's quite big strips. For what I showed you, I used about 3/4 of one strip. So yeah, you can do quite a lot with it. So yeah, thank you for watching, and please like this video if you liked it. And yeah, see you in the next one, and ask questions or keep asking questions, and hopefully people are not too upset if I make videos that kind of repeat themselves sometimes, just because I found a tiny bit better way of doing something. If you haven't seen it and you want to see more about the weather sealing, please search on my channel. You will find a whole teardown where I go step by step into where I think the problems are and how they could be resolved. And this is more of like an endpoint where I ended up being, where I think this is actually now a very good solution in multiple ways. In the way that it now handles, in the way that it now feels, in the way that it now sort of have this extra 2 centimeters of protection, in the way that it's not moving the door anymore, because now you can see the door is basically still in its original location, at least on this grip. So it's still over there. But this is also now much better protected. So this is kind of like protection layer 1. And this is like protection layer number 2. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video and see you in the next one. Bye bye.